Da-da.
All right. What's up, world?
Third Facebook Live discussion for Second Mile.
Mm-hmm.
We're glad that you're going to join us. We'll wait a second and let everybody tune in on this Tuesday night at 9 o'clock.
Tuesday night.
It's Taco Tuesday for the Martells, in case you were wondering.
Uh-huh.
Taco
Yeah,
Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hey, Kendall. Good to see you joining. We're glad you're here. So tonight's discussion, kind of an important one. I'll give you a little backstory.
Uh-oh.
Tony's not prepared for this. This is not about Tony, this backstory. So I'm a therapist, and I always say that if I could have any career ever, it would be exactly what I'm doing. But if someone said you could go and do it even more, or do like something in addition to it, what would it be? And for me, it would be to study the art of language, because I'm obsessed with words and how they sound and what they mean and why people choose the words they choose and why they use the cadence the way they use it when they're talking and all of those parts. So hey, Dawn and Carlos. And so I think that stems from the nerd in me as a kid when I watched my parents and I was like, man, they've got a killer point, but they suck at saying it to each other. They've gotten better. But I remember being so young and thinking, what, like, mom's making sense. Why is dad not responding to it? And I remember realizing at a really young age, just because she just it doesn't sound very good the way it's coming out, you know, or vice versa with my dad. And so we learn from our families. And so for me, I always joked and said that I would write a book one day called It's Not What You're Saying, It's How You're Saying It. And then it turns out it's already a book. So
It's already a book.
So someone beat me to it, and it's a saying. So that's what we're talking about tonight is it's not what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it. Because I can just honestly tell you for myself, this is a hard one. This is a struggle. You said this is...
Yeah, this is probably the one that I mess up the most on. The absolute most.
That you mess up the most on?
Yeah, because I think, I'll say something and then really early on in our marriage, I would be like, really?
Oh, yeah.
And I would like throw like this eye look at her.
Yeah.
And she would get so mad at it, and I would do it on purpose because I knew it would be like, it was like the end all.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I was saying with my tone, the word in and of itself, oh, really? Like that's, oh, okay.
It's not a bad word.
Not a bad word.
Not a bad thing to say.
But the tone in which I would use would deminimize and devalue literally everything she said, and I could sum it up in one word and the conversation was over.
Yeah. And
it was over in a bad way.
So it was one word, and it was the way you would say it.
Yep.
It was really two words. Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I still don't like those words. I don't like it. So one thing is, as we talk tonight, please feel free to write in your questions. Please feel free to write in any comments that you have or experiences where you've learned how to manage how you're saying something. We want to hear from you because, again, we're not necessarily the experts here. You guys are the experts in your own lives. We're just walking the second mile with you. Yeah. So keep that in mind also, that this is a public forum. So be careful how much you share because we can't protect your privacy. And so we always put that out there too.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing I was talking about with Tony is that I often hear people will say, I'll say, well, why are you saying it like that? Like, do you hear how that sounds? Do you hear how your wife or your husband how that might sound to them on the other end of being on the other side of you? And they'll be like, yeah, but they should know by now. Do you ever feel that way? Yeah. Do you ever feel like we've been doing this long enough, he should know by now? Yeah. And so therefore, because he should know by now, I am going to try and say it any way I can to get you to know by now. To hear it, yeah. Right?
Even if when you say it, it's done with a tone of, oh, what's that tone?
Oh, I have a tone?
Well, we all have a tone. I mean, we've all got a tone.
We do all have a tone. My defense, I've shared this with you before, my defense mechanism is to over-intellectualize. So I will try to outwit or outsmart. So my tone could probably be pretty snitty or, yeah, sorry about that. But the other thing, the reason I bring that up is because time is a big contributor to how we justify our right to communicate with our partner. So I've been with you this long. We've been through this much together. We've been over this by now. Yeah. But if we think about our relationship with God, how many times does Holy Spirit whisper to us? How many times does Jesus respond with an inquiring question to us? Yeah. Opposed to using increasing harsher tones. Mm-hmm. And often when you hear people say, I feel like, maybe my situation's getting worse because God's just trying to yell at me to get me to realize it. And that's really like us putting us in that circumstances. It's not God's tone towards us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's almost like in marriages it's like the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt, they say. And it's not that we have contempt for our spouses, but it's that we are so familiar that it's like, I'm just going to say, I've already told you. Like, it's not what we're going to. And so you use a tone to get something across when it's really not. The words are irrelevant. Like, we could just speak in tongues at each other and just, you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Because it's the tone conveys the feeling.
Right.
Which I think was what this really comes down to, is that our emotions, like you were saying earlier, our emotions are what govern these tones, these moments, especially. It's like we let my feelings, you said it best, and it's my feelings are justifying my words in the moment, in reaction to my spouse.
And that no communication is also communication.
Yeah.
Right? So like I asked Tony earlier when we were kind of chatting about this subject, like, Tony, what would you say to somebody if they said, well, I keep bringing the subject up and I keep trying to talk about it in a different way, but my husband is passive. He just won't respond. He just ignores it. What do you do in that situation? What would you recommend to somebody in that situation? He's like, don't ask me that again.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I said to you when you just last asked me, I was like, I don't know what I would do.
I know, I was hoping he had some insight and wisdom.
It's like a broken record because you have to model it. Unfortunately, you really have to model. You have to decide for yourself what you want to be like in your marriage. You have to commit to it. If you haven't read this, Tyler Ken is watching right now. He recommended to me a phenomenal book called Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations is really about coming to an agreement. So we've talked a little bit about having things that we are committed to in our marriage. So we commit to certain parenting techniques. We're going to commit to it. Well, we want to stay unified in that. Well, Crucial Conversations is an amazing book at how to govern hard topics and when you're coming up against a spouse that is just not there where you need them to be, and how do you get through to them? Well, it's going to take time and patience. Gonna take patience.
That's the song. You're just making that up? Can you turn the fan off? Because I think it's really annoying probably for people. Mariah, good luck with your husband snoring. We don't have a solution for that.
Yeah, write in your comment.
Write in your questions and comments. Okay, so I think one thing we have to realize is that it's not just when you think about it, it's not just responding harshly, right? So when you hear the saying, it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it, we automatically think verbal, but nonverbal is so important as well. And Tony does a great job at talking about this with guys, and I watch you teach guys this, which is, turning your body towards your wife, making sure you're maintaining eye contact, making sure you're repeating back what you heard your spouse say.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
That's a huge one in general, and this will serve our professional lives as well. If we can figure out when we hear it, say it back, because then that gives the other person gives your partner an opportunity to say, no, that's not at all what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what I said. Let me say it again.
And as women, we have to be careful to not take offense when our husbands don't get it right away. Not that, I mean, most of the time you do get it, I'll give you credit. But but if you don't, if you feel like you're trying your best and your spouse isn't getting it, we have a responsibility to manage that emotional response and not harbor a frustration that then justifies the tone we're going to use next. We can't, because we feel dismissed or we feel like we haven't been understood, we can't come on the attack. We're still partners. We're still working towards the same goal. So it's not necessarily like, does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Guys, what is your biggest struggle in managing how you're saying something? Because I know there's times when you're having a conversation and you have a really important point to make. Like, this needs to get addressed in our marriage. What is the holdup? Like, what is the struggle for you in managing your tone or how you're saying something? What's your struggle?
I know my struggle is that if I'm really passionate about something and I want it to be a certain way, and if you're not listening, or if I don't feel, or this, like if I don't feel your support with it, that's a big piece for me, because I will react to that.
Yeah.
Which again, it's just a feeling. It's an interpretation of a moment that I then react to with a tone.
So part of it is you maybe are anticipating not having my support.
Well, no, I think now we've kind of come to a place where we want to believe the best about each other. So I believe that I have your support and your faith and your belief and your love and all of that. But there's times in the conversations when, it just doesn't.
It's friction.
Yeah, it's friction.
It's friction.
It doesn't always work.
It doesn't feel good. And how quickly do we want to get out of a conversation that doesn't feel good, right? So, couple things. My face, Elizabeth. That's so good. I can govern my words, but the eye rolls. Yes, and I think you are not alone there. I am very much, if you can't tell, I'm very much an expressive person. And
there's Elizabeth, I don't know if you're a One Republic fan, but he just put out a song, it's probably a year ago now, but it's called Hurt Tonight. And he has such a poetic way of saying how he wants to stick it out for the whole night in a conversation with the girl that he's in love with or whoever he's singing about. And he's saying now he's not going to roll his eyes at all in the conversation. It's just
good luck.
It's just beautiful. It's hard to do. I do it.
Mariah, I was raised in a house with a lot of cussing and a lot of yelling. Yes, yeah, I can understand. I have such a hard time not raising my voice or using awful words. Tony's laughing at Tyler's comment below yours. Tyler, thank you for your Beanie Baby comment. We are going to move over that one. I think, Mariah, you bring up a really good point. We are a lot of what we've seen and what we know. And we have to shed those pieces of us when we go into a marriage. And that comes with self-awareness and self-control. So one of the things that I do regularly is when I know when I know I have something to bring up that is going to perhaps stimulate friction or rub Tony the wrong way, I think about how I would want to hear it. And then I try to speak through that lens. And I also consider what's important to him. So if I know that he's the type of guy where he needs to believe that I believe in him. And so even if I have to say, like, dude, I have asked you to take out the trash like 200 times and you still haven't done it, I'm going to say it to him in a way that communicates, I believe you're going to do it this time. Because for him, that's like a core value about our marriage and about our relationship. He needs to know, in order to hear me, he needs to know that I believe in him. So I can tell him he's failing at something, but if I'm doing it with words that emphasize, I still believe in you, then he's going to hear me. And that takes intentionality. Like, I have to think before I speak, because I was raised with yelling and on all of that as well. And so it is increasing that self-awareness and not letting ourselves and excusing ourselves in a moment of frustration to just fall back to what we know. We are new creations in Christ. And so we have his power and authority. We don't have just our upbringing in our past, right? Yeah. We have his power and authority.
Yeah. And another thing is that early on in our marriage, like, F-bombs were flying everywhere. I mean, just because there's a pastor in front of my name doesn't mean I got it all together.
Well, and I like.
And yeah, I don't know, you'd like to cuss.
I like cuss words.
But so one of the things we did is that we wanted to fight. We wanted to fight fair, and we didn't want to fight in a way that cut the other. And so we just agreed. We came to a point where it's like we can't swear in our fighting anymore.
Right.
So we cut it out. And then if it slips up.
Rules. Rules.
Yeah, we put rules down.
We have rules in how we fight.
Yeah.
We have fair fighting rules that we adhere to.
Yeah. And it has honestly helped our fighting tremendously. So I would try that. It's very productive. So if you're swearing in your fights, try come into an agreement where you're going to put it down for a while. You're going to commit to not doing it. See what happens.
Yeah. And Heather, I want to mention yours because, Tony, I want you to speak to this. So Heather's comment, when you feel like something is a bigger deal than your spouse does, feeling like they don't take it seriously because it's a non-issue to them. Yes, that completely makes sense. I felt this way for the majority of our relationship until probably 5 years in, really. And all of a sudden something changed where I would watch Tony intentionally choose to be present and not just blow it off.
Yeah.
What was that about? Why did you make that shift?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I think I came to a place where I wanted to make sure that you and I were 100% aligned on everything. And that meant me having to look certain things through your eyes and how you saw them and say, yep. Here's the thing. I'm a theologian, but I'm also I'm a classics geek. So, there's a reason why, like, the goddess of wisdom is a female in the ancient world, right? Even in the Bible, right? For
like 1,000 hearts and likes right there.
There's a reason why Athena, she was the goddess of wisdom, and even every time you talk about wisdom, read the Proverbs. It's always a she.
That's true.
So, if you just kind of think for a second, guys, like, women have an intuition that we don't have. And so I'm married to a brilliant woman and I want to keep up with her. And so I decided that I was going to make some changes, and they were silly things. It was just stuff like house stuff. Like, I didn't want to fix the sink or something, because my past life, it was always fixing sinks and I was always doing construction. And so now it's like, I don't want to deal with it. Let me just do my other stuff.
That caused a huge problem for a long time.
And that did come, as simple as it was, it caused a problem. But when we can figure out, guys, how to like take seriously the way our women see things, it's like two assets are like infinitely more powerful than just a single brain. So
that really is the whole idea of woven as one is a win, because when then you're thinking together, not just for yourself.
Yeah.
Selfishness breeds does not breed selflessness. It definitely splinters the marriage for sure. Yeah. I think also how I communicate to Tony, that I don't think that I think he's dismissing what I'm saying or not taking it as important is really important. And so part of what I would say over the years is like, you're missing, and this may sound corny, but I would say you're missing my heart message. Like, you're missing it. Like, when you don't respond to this, I don't feel valued. And I had to consistently say that. And here's why, women, take note of this. Here's why, we're going to talk about this on June 30th. Because you're worth it. You're worth it in your marriage. You have something. He may be the leader, but you are yoked with him. And so you need to help that process, and you are worth communicating to your spouse. I don't feel valuable when you don't acknowledge that I need the sink fixed. I don't feel valuable when you don't acknowledge that I've brought this up to your attention 10 times. And I had to communicate that over and over. Like, I know I'm valuable, but I don't feel valuable to you when you do this. And I have a world out there that will tell me I'm valuable, but I need it from you and I want it from you.
So like our finances for a while, I did the finances for a long time, and we just kept coming up against a brick wall, and she had the answers, and I wasn't listening.
It's true.
And so finally I was like, you know what? I want to win. Maybe I'm not good at shortstop. So I'll sit the bench if our team can win.
Yeah.
And it changed things. Things changed. And now now it's switched back to me, and I'll do the finances, and maybe they'll go back to you for a while. But
we want to touch on some of these comments.
I want to look at Kendall's comment on.
Yeah.
Corey says you're too emotional, huh?
Us girls. Nah, never emotional. Never. When I feel my emotions express how I feel, it shows what words my tongue can't seem to form. Yes. How do I turn down the dial of emotions, or how should he look at my womanly emotional talking? Oh my gosh. Okay, so part of the June 30th event, I hope you guys are coming, because part of the June 30th event is literally talking about how we manage our emotions matters so our husband can hear us.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a really great point, Kendall, and you're not alone. And it was one of the biggest tasks that I had to conquer as a female, was recognizing that my emotions don't justify my words. And just because I feel a certain way, I want him to feel what I'm feeling. I want to know he understands what I'm feeling, but I might not always be able to just show him with the intensity that I feel it. I have to trust, now this is a huge one, I have to trust my husband with God. And so I'm going to use the right words. I'm going to think before I speak. And then if I'm not getting the reaction I need that confirms he heard me, I'm not going to turn the dial up. I'm not going to try and manipulate him to get him to give me the reaction I need. I'm going to trust God with my husband, and I'm going to pray, and I am going to let time pass, and I am then going to revisit it because I'm worth revisiting it.
Yeah. And so here's where it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it plays into this. Because I'm married to a psychotherapist, which I've said this before. It means she helps people like me stop doing stupid things.
No, that's not what I mean. Stop telling me.
But in regards to manipulating, like I will not hear. I will hear it differently than if she's saying it, and I will react to it in a moment and be like, "Don't try and therapize me." Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, "Don't therapize me," and I'll say it with a tone, and then boom, the whole thing blows up. But it's because in that moment, honestly, I was the one that didn't govern my emotions. So it goes both ways.
It works both ways. Yeah. And part of it is sometimes when you have one spouse who is more emotional and expressive, it tends to cause the other spouse to go down and shrink in because they're trying to control how intense you're getting. Your intensity makes them uncomfortable and maybe part of their personality. And so I think you have to keep that in mind, that staying equal, staying level with your spouse. It doesn't mean you minimize who you are, but you don't want to have that knee-jerk reaction in your spouse where they shut down and stonewall because you're so expressive and so emotional. Because then they're just trying to get you. You guys aren't really communicating or partnering at that point. Does that make sense? Okay, we got another question. Oh, yes, and Heather, that means you cannot say I'm fine, it's fine anymore. No. You cannot say that. That doesn't work. How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. We all know that's not true. It never means that.
But sometimes it's okay to just let it be.
Well, there is wisdom in that. For sure. Just letting it be. But that's that part of trusting God with your spouse.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So love language is words of affirmation. I don't feel like I need praise and thanks. And then Mariah, your spouse really needs it. So it's hard sometimes to use kind words and build him up when he's not understanding what he needs. That I absolutely need to work on making him feel like I believe in him and speaking in a different way. Yes. Profanities, I feel like, yes. Girl, you get it. So look, Mariah, you get it. You have the insight and the wisdom. I think the hardest part is the application. It's the application. And application is a self-discipline. It's a conscious choice. So I was telling Tony earlier, I'm going to tell you guys this. Think about a context. Think about a context where you can't just say what you want to say, right? So let's give you an easy one. Work. You can't just say to your boss, no, that's not what we should do. That's a stupid idea. In your head, you might be able to think that, but you can't just say that, right? So why is it you are able to tame your tongue in a work environment? Why is that? Why do you guys think it is? Why is it that we're able to tame our tongue in a work environment? And there may be times where you have a better idea to contribute. There may be times where your boss may even come back to you and be like, you know what, we should have gone with that project. We should have gone with that idea. But you tame your tongue in a work context. Why can we do that? Here's why. Because you don't want to lose your job. Your job is important. So you have gained a skill set in order to tame your tongue and emotionally regulate what you're feeling. Okay? So you have a skill set. Why did you gain that skill set? Longevity. Nobody wants to be hopping from job to job. So here's the thing. You already have a skill set that is transferable. Now you must make the choice to transfer it. That's a choice. And so we can't just say, well, I don't go home with my boss. That's an excuse. You do kind of go home with your boss. They're still in your head. You're still annoyed. You're still frustrated. Who are you taking that out on? And then the other thing is that you choose the next day to go back to work and still tame your tongue. So you're keeping that choice. You guys, we have the self-discipline and the ability to tame our tongue. It's the matter of making the choice and practicing it in order to have longevity in our marriage. If we want longevity in our career, we practice this skill set. So we are capable of doing it. We need to transfer it over, and there's reward in doing it. When I see that I have communicated with Tony in a way that blesses our marriage and blesses him, it doesn't justify him walking away from the conversation being like, she one crazy chick. Like, when I see that I've not given him reason to go there, I feel empowered. And I feel like, okay, we're together. We have each other's back. So making that choice and practicing that self-discipline is totally worth it, and it's rewarding. Yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It is very hard. It's hard. I mean, I wish there was a really easy answer for like, how do you in the moment? But it's just conscientious, like, this is not who I want to be as a wife. And that's what I say to myself.
Yeah.
All the time. This is not who I want to be as a wife. I want to be patient. I don't want to react. I want to be thoughtful. I remind myself in the moments that I'm even being hurt, who I want to be as a wife. Sometimes you don't deserve it, but I'm going to do it.
I always deserve it.
But I'm going to do it because that's how the Lord loves me, you know? Does that make sense? Yeah. Any questions, you guys? Let's see, what's else? Yeah, speak life to that. Yes. Yeah, it's amazing how we think that the person we love them, it's amazing how the person we love the most is the person we can tear down the fastest. Yeah, that is for sure. But I think that's that piece of like, I guess, and Mariah, I would ask you this, is like, do you think that, do you have an unreasonable expectation of your spouse? So like all your pain in your past or all the things you've ever seen, do you have an expectation in that moment that your spouse is never going to cause you those things too? Because that's an unreasonable expectation to put on your spouse. Like, I expect that Tony's going to piss me off. I expect that Tony's going to cause me pain. I also expect that we're going to work through that as a team to decrease how often that happens, and vice versa, because I'm sure I do the same.
Tyler has a great question. He said, I found great help in having a close friend where I can get a different perspective on relationship stuff and have accountability. Is this healthy and helpful? Of course. Absolutely.
It's a great point.
Yes.
Do you have an accountability person?
Yeah. Find a positive. I'm on this positive peer group kick. Find people that will speak life into you and hold you accountable. Because here's the thing. Somebody who will hold you accountable is somebody who will tell you the truth when you don't want to hear it. Which sucks.
Yep.
Because that will hurt sometimes. But again, it all comes down to it's not what they're saying, it's how they're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know that they have your best interest at heart, well, then you're going to hear the heart of it.
Yeah. And, I think boundaries come into play with this. So a lot of times in marriage, we throw boundaries out. So stay with me for a second. Like we think, well, that's my spouse. And so, it doesn't apply here. I don't have to maintain a certain boundary or self-discipline. But if you look at Jesus, he wasn't always the nicest how he said things, but what he was saying was really important. But he had to be frank and he had to hold a boundary at times. So there are going to be times that your spouse is going to say something or your partner is going to say something to you and it doesn't feel good. And that's not the moment to be like, well, it's not valid because it doesn't feel good. So when you're on the other side of a boundary or you're on the other side of a harsh comment, it is important for us who's receiving it to wonder why that's being said, right? So like when Jesus says to the guy who says, what do I have to do to follow you? And Jesus is like, you're not ready to follow me. You need to go sell all your things. You need to leave your family right now. Like that's harsh. That's intense. Why would he say it like that? But we trust Jesus. We trust that he had a reason for that. And so I think when we engage our spouse or our partner, we have to understand that that's a piece of it too, is like there may still be value in what they're saying. It's just how they're saying it is hard to receive in that moment. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Revisit that and really think about that.
Yeah, that's good. Find find a good person that you can trust and that will speak into you. And give you a good counter perspective. Mm-hmm. And also let you vent. Mm-hmm. That's healthy too, to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, appropriate venting, not like wildfire venting. That's not good. That's not good for any marriage or relationship. Let's see. So, top 5 books you would recommend. Woo. Okay. This is a funny story. I'm going to tell you a little something about us. So, I was given a book by an ex-boyfriend who, I was given a book a long time ago by an ex-boyfriend. That relationship wasn't going to work. Realized that really fast, but I got an awesome book out of it. And so this book kind of became what I realized in reading it, a relationship could be. And it's like an unheard of book. I never thought anyone else would have read it. So when Tony and I were on our second date, I said to him, what's your favorite book? And he pulls this book out of his glove box, and it's the same book. How crazy is that? And so it's called A Severe Mercy by Sheldon Van Hocken. And that book really is the foundation of how we operate.
Of how we communicate.
Yep. That's it right there. That's the number 1 book.
And it's on our resource page on our website if you want to find the book, because it is a rare book.
It's a rare book. And it's different. It's not like a how-to marriage book.
No, it's an autobiography of his life and their relationship. It's a tragic love story, but it's a good love story. Mm-hmm. What can you say, Tyler Kent?
Wait, she said top 5 books.
Oh, top 5. Ask Tyler Kent. Tyler Kent is an amazing resource, everybody, right now, because he has he's
Sarah,
got so many books. Crucial Conversations is huge. We're currently reading How We Love, mm-hmm. which is
by the Yorkoviches.
Which is an awesome book. It goes into some therapeutic stuff.
It's very therapeutic, and there's a workbook that goes with it. Super easy to read. It's about attachment styles, and so how you were raised and how that develops your ability to form a healthy attachment and healthy communication with your spouse. And there's an awesome workbook that goes with that. So that's a great one.
I don't want to Jesus juke this, but the Bible. Read Proverbs.
Just kidding.
Seriously.
Read Proverbs.
People
Proverbs
read the Bible. 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. We've not read that.
Seriously, read Proverbs 1-10 and read it in one setting.
Yeah.
Because there's a narrative there about marriage and wisdom and how to interact in relationships.
And guarding your marriage.
And guarding and protecting your marriage.
So we read that one while dating together. We would sit and read Proverbs together while dating, and challenge each other about the parts that talk about adultery. And really ask, like, how do you stay in love with the wife of your youth? And I'm pretty sure it says her boobs, but anyways. Doesn't it in Proverbs?
It does, actually.
It does.
Yeah.
I think it does.
Yeah.
It's keeping it hot and saucy in Proverbs.
May they always satisfy you. That's what it says.
We're going to move on. And there's lots of other classic good books out there, Love and Respect, all of those. They're not my favorites, to be quite honest with you. I kind of am a fan of the outside ones, but an oldie but goodie is Love Life for Every Married Couple. And it's pretty conservative, but I think it's got some good points in there. So that's Love Life for Every Married Couple. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Guys, thank you so much. Love your comments.
Love your questions and comments. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so cool that you join in each week. We're honored. We want you to keep staying tuned and know that the June 30th event, like what you're getting in these Facebook Lives is just a snippet, really. And really the June 30th event is about an experience where you get to come into a moment with your partner or spouse, or even if you're coming by yourself or you're single but you want to be married, where you are allowed to creatively explore who you're called to be in marriage and what it can ultimately look, feel, and sound like. And so stay tuned for that, because these are just snippets of what that whole process is going to be like, top to bottom. So June 30th, Virginia Beach, Sheraton Oceanfront, secondmilelife.org, and we love you guys.
See ya.
Thanks. See ya.